Okay, we're live.
Thank you, Adrian. Good morning, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order. It is 10:02 a.m. Wednesday, June 17, 2020. And I have to call for a conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? And say yes or no.
No.
Just shout it out. Don't be shy, everybody.
No.
Unmute yourselves and shout out yes or no. Conflict of interest?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you, Andy. How about you, Mr. Maestas? How about you, Mandy? How about you, Barbara? How about you, Dominic? How about you, Liz? All of you, we're all in this. Okay.
I do not, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
You're welcome.
Oh, and there's our Mayor Pro Tem. Do you have a conflict, Mayor Pro Tem? Conflict of interest?
I don't have a conflict. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so we are now with on the acceptance of the agenda. May I have a motion?
A motion to accept the agenda from Councillor Sorg.
Second by Councillor Gandara.
It's been moved by Councillor Sorg and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara to accept the agenda. So we'll move on to.
How about a vote?
Do we need a vote? Oh, yeah.
Usually you
We
do.
moved inside. Yeah, we have a motion. I'm sorry. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is it just the three of us voting, right? Okay, aye. And then, so let's move on to the minutes for approval. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of Economic Development PRC meetings of May 6, 2020 and May 20, 2020? Do I have a motion to approve?
Cassandra's turn.
So moved.
I'll
Got
second
it.
that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara and seconded by Councillor and Mayor Pro Tem Emeritus Gil Sorg.
Get the titles, come on.
Well, you're the one that puts them out there all the time, so that's what you get. May 6, 2020 and May 2020. May I have a vote? All the ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The minutes have been approved of the May 6 and May 20, 2020 minutes. Next is our discussion. And the first item is, the next item is Economic Development Strategic Plan Updates, Destination Downtown. Who's going to present on that? Mandy or Dr. Payares or Dr. Griselda?
Madam Chair, this is Griselda Martinez, Economic Development Director. For the record, it's going to be all of our program managers, and they're all online. So we have prepared a presentation because of being easier to switch from one another. Each one of us is going to be sharing our own screen with my exception because I'm having internet issues. So if we can start, let me see, I believe
Griselda, this is Mandy. Do you want me to share my screen? Because I think I'm the first one up.
Yes, ma'am. If you can, please. Thank you much.
Welcome.
Perfect. Okay, so this would be a reporting on the actual metrics of our strategic plan. As you know, the city went through a very rigorous process of crafting strategic plans for each department about 3 years ago. And at that point, the Economic Development Department was fairly new, and it helped us really define what were our priority areas and from that, we created programs and moved away from sections as we were defined before. And so, Mandy, can you go to the next one? So this is the summary of all the programs for our department right now. The first one is the Office of the Director, followed by Airport Development, Sustainability, Business Development, Land Management, Destination Downtown, and Visit Las Cruces. From these different programs, we have 4 line of businesses. One of them is the line of business called Development, and under Development, we have Airport Development, Business Development, Destination Downtown, and Visit Las Cruces. And then the other 2, the other ones are Land Management and Real Estate Services, and Sustainability, and Office of the Director as the last one. As you know, Sustainability is going to be moving to City Manager's office. So that's going to be a change in our strategic plan that we have actually been working on updating to take effect the beginning of this fiscal year. So that would be July 1st. So with that, if we can start with the actual program, Mandy.
Thank you. This is Mandy Gus from Economic Development. And so I am the program manager for business development. And our purpose statement is to provide attraction, retention, expansion, and ongoing business guidance services to current and prospective businesses so they can create jobs, grow their business, and improve citywide economic vitality. And so what I'm going to go over today is the measures that were in our peak performance that we put together in the last, I think Griselda mentioned about 3 years ago. So the summary of our measures are by the end of this calendar year, 90% of business registrations will be renewed annually. By December 2022, there will be an increase of 10% new businesses locating at or expanding at the West Mesa Industrial Park. That equals 2 new businesses. By December of this year, the city's unemployment rate will be at or below full employment, which is 4% as defined by BLS. By last year, 80% of existing businesses would be contacted twice annually by the department. By the end of last year, 95% of new businesses would be contacted and made aware of services provided by the department within 60 days of the business registering. There would be a 5% increase overall in business registrations annually, and that we would get 600 new businesses registered annually. And that was the baseline for fiscal year 2017. So going through each of these, we have the first was the number of businesses contacted, that we would contact each business at least twice annually. We, especially with COVID-19, that pushed us into the use of constant contact and email discussions with our businesses. When our community development department moved over to a new registration system in Acela, that allowed us to have email contacts for every registered business. And now we're able to have an ongoing email discussion with them. So we have contacted our businesses many more times than twice. And there are some businesses that we've also reached out to proactively by phone throughout this. So that measure has been achieved and surpassed. New businesses are contacted within 60 days. Though within 60 days is sometimes we don't always hit that timeline. There's a little bit of a reporting lag between them being registered in the Acela system and us getting the report. But we are still reaching out to all those businesses. I think it's probably more realistic to say that our new businesses are contacted within 90 days. There's an increase in new business registrations. When looking at our numbers, it was a little bit of a struggle. We had our numbers through quarter 3. which as you all know, the pandemic and restrictions and all of that started mid-March. So quarter three does only slightly reflects how COVID-19 has impacted us. As of quarter three, our business registrations were higher than last year's, but I'm not sure that that trend will continue with quarter four. We also, as part of our program, do business incentives. In this last quarter, quarter three, we did 2 new LIDA projects. The first of which was Big Tuna, which had participation from both the state and the city of Las Cruces. And then we did a LIDA project for Natural Relief, which does have part of their project is in the city of Las Cruces, but most of the project is in the county. So while the city of Las Cruces will be the fiscal agent for that, it will be the state's money, not the city's money. I think that's the same slide, so I'm going to go again. So moving on from business development, I'm also the program manager for Destination Downtown. And our purpose statement in Destination Downtown is to provide marketing, events, infrastructure, and business development services to residents, businesses, and visitors so they can experience and benefit from a downtown that is the focal point and heart of the city. I'm going to go over our summary of measures. The first of which was by this year, foot traffic in downtown will increase by an additional 10% each year. I will talk about that a little bit more when I talk about the updates. By the end of last year, the number of businesses locating to downtown would increase by 6%. That took the number of businesses in, and we defined the downtown as the district of the TID. So when we first started this, there were 250 businesses in that district, and we wanted to grow it to 265. By 2022, through public and private partnerships, 200 additional downtown living spaces will be available. That measure is actually from the City Council strategic plan, and we pulled it directly from there. There will be a 10% increase in tax increment development district revenue. That comes from growth in both GRT in the district, but also an increase in property taxes or property value. And then that 12 downtown business incentives would be granted. So moving into the updates for each of those measures, the downtown foot traffic, in a couple of years ago, we got the system called SUFA, which I know we've presented to City Council before, and hopefully you're familiar with. And we had multiple benches along Main Street that were counting smart devices. We don't have any information on anyone. It was merely a count of those devices. Unfortunately, in March of last year, the company SUFA discontinued that as a service, and we had to find a new system. At the same time, we were working with our IT department to put in Wi-Fi at the downtown plaza, and we are able to use that system now to count devices again. However, we only have coverage of the plaza. So unfortunately, we don't have a baseline to tell you. The systems have changed in the middle of us counting. So I am unable to tell you exactly that we have grown. However, what we can tell you is up until quarter three, the trends were consistent with the trends that we tracked in SUFA. Obviously, in quarter four, we've seen the foot traffic drop significantly due to the stay-at-home orders. Businesses locating in downtown, we're up to 322, which means that we have met and surpassed the goal. Downtown living spaces. So currently there are the lofts at Alameda, which is about 33 apartments. That is the only multifamily living spaces in downtown currently. However, we have met with several developers who have shown interest in building multifamily in downtown. The city owns a lot of open parking spaces. uh, flat surface parking lots, and those would be ideal for redevelopment with a mixed use commercial and residential use. So our section is working on putting out an RFP for development of one or more of those lots. As well as there is currently a lease with a private developer for the parking lot on Water Street next to El Paso Electric. Excuse me. And the developer that has the lease has plans for multifamily on that lot as well. But we're waiting for those plans to move forward. So those are on track to happen. I believe again that the city council goals were for that to happen by 2022. Our TID revenue goal was to grow the TID by 10%, but we have actually seen the TID revenue drop significantly. A part of that is that we used to receive a portion of the increment from the state's portion of GRT, and we no longer receive that. That was planned when the TID was created. It had, once we hit a dollar amount or a time amount, and we hit both of those in 2018. So in 2019, we stopped receiving the state shared portion, which significantly dropped our revenue. But beyond that, we've also seen the percentage of just the city's portion drop as well. Part of the reason for that is we have had major construction projects in the TID, and major construction projects pay GRT. We built the plaza, the Amador project was built, and then the church water to a conversion. And as those construction projects were completed, which we're very happy about, but they are no longer paying GRT. So that is a big portion of why the revenue is down and not up in the TID. Business incentives in downtown, as you'll remember, our goal was 12. I think that was a bit of a stretch goal. We were hoping that we might be able to do one a month. In reality, we have 5 projects this year. 3 are completed. RAD was completed, Mama Bees is completed, and Bex Express is completed. All of those use the Renovate Main Street incentive, and they are open and operating. We have contracts signed and work is underway for Lazy Dog. Actually has changed their name to Lucky Dog Billiards. When we signed the contract, they were Lazy Dog, but that has changed in the meantime. And Icebox Brewing. Both of those, construction is coming to a close, and I expect that they will be submitting for their reimbursement as per the contract, probably in the next 30 to 45 days. We've talked to several other businesses in downtown, one of which is Shuggies. They're looking at putting in a fire suppression system, and potentially Renovate Main Street would be an option for them. Mateo's is looking at a location on Main Street. They had a banner up for most of last year, and they're about ready to move forward. And so we're talking to them about how Renovate Main Street may be something that could work for them. In downtown, again, we've mentioned a couple times the tax increment development district. TID has a board that has set several priority projects, and so the destination downtown budget includes TID, one of the priority projects is parking lot 7 to be redesigned. Parking lot 7 is the parking lot that is behind the Rio Grande Theater. So the new design has been started. We have a phase 1 design done. It'll have to go out to public input, but as part of that, some of the things that we're looking to do are create easier access for loading and unloading into the Rio Grande Theater, move the dumpsters to a place that's easy for loading and unloading of the dumpsters, move the public bathrooms. Right now, they're a little bit off of the main walkway at La Placita, and they can be very dark, and the entrance points away from the main walkway. And so moving that so it will be hopefully more safe, more easily accessible. And then we're looking at other things like lighting and ease of use. Another major project that's being funded by the TID budget is the Compost Street redesign, reconstruction. And we have a scope of work completed with the contractor, and hopefully the design will begin in the next 30 days, or the first phase of that will begin in the next 30 days. I'm going to skip my third bullet point because that's actually not in the TID budget, and jump to the fourth bullet point, which is pay back the general fund for the Amador project. When the Amador project was built, the agreement was that it would be half funded by city general fund and half funded by the TID. And so at the beginning, the general fund paid the entire project, and now the TID must pay the general fund back. So we have a 5-year payback plan, and the first of that first transfer was this year for the $750,000. There will be, at the end of the payback, the TID will have paid back the general fund a total of $3.25 million. And then the bullet point that I skipped is it's not a part of the TID budget. It's part of the general fund, but it is part of the Destination Downtown program. The Arts and Cultural District Coordinating Council was able to get some legislative capital outlay money for Arts and Cultural District projects. Unfortunately, we have been asked to put capital outlay money on hold pending the special legislative session. So while we're ready to go on a couple of those projects, those are on hold pending the outcome of the special session. And so that is my wrap up of both business development and Destination Downtown. And I can move on to either keep using the slides or if land management would like to take over.
Councilor Fuller.
Wait a minute.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I question if
Councilor
Manny?
Sorg, yes.
Okay, Manny, what was the money that the city used in the Amador project used for? What did it buy? What was it used?
Councilor Sorg, the money actually, we did some partial demo of the Amador Hotel for the non-historic portions. And then we built the entire new project where the restaurants are, and we built the new Visit Las Cruces building as well. So that entire project was a $6.5 million project. And all of that is now owned by the city. The restaurant portions are leased by a private.
I'm sorry, I didn't make myself clear. That's not what I was asking.
Okay.
You have $750,000 there that is being repaid back to the general fund from the TID, right? Okay, what was that money used for?
That is that project. So Councilor Sorg.
It costs so much more than that.
Yes, Councilor Sorg, the total project was a $6.5 million project. And at the beginning, it was agreed that it would be half city, half TID. But the city paid all of the expenses up front. And so the TID is now paying back to the general fund their portion over a 5-year time frame. So the 750 is just the first payment. And there will be more to come over the next 5 years. We will pay that the TID will pay that $3.25 million back to the city.
Yeah, there's still something I don't understand. And that is the, in my understanding of the project was it was going to be a private paid job, project rather. Didn't Mr. Bauer pay for this Amador
No, Counselor Sorg, this is a project that is owned by the city. So the city paid for it. The city owns those buildings, the city owns that land.
Yeah.
And then a private entity leases that space from us.
Okay,
But Mr. Bauer was the contractor who put it together, and he is
Right.
part of the group that leases it from us.
yeah, okay. Now, so they pay their lease money. Yeah. And where does that money go to?
The lease money goes into the general fund.
General fund, okay. Which did all of $6 million plus come out of the general fund? I thought it came out of the TID.
Originally, upfront, the $6.5 million came from the general fund, and that's why the TID is paying them back. Because
much-
the
how
TID
much
does
is-
have to pay back 3.25 million.
3.25.
Yes, half of the cost of the project.
Okay. So has the TID paid it all back now?
The 750 is the first payment of 5 that they're paying back.
Of 5 different payments, same
Yeah.
amount. Okay. All right. I understand it now. Thank you. That's interesting. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done. Out.
Thank you, Mr. Sword, or Counselor Sword. Any other questions of Mandy's presentation? So Mr. Sword or Counselor Sword, put your hand down, please. Otherwise, I'll get really confused. Yes.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions, if I may.
I'm sorry. Who has her hand up?
Are you now doing participant and hand up and down? Okay.
Yes, I am. But you know, I lost.
That's me.
I'm so sorry. No, I see your hand now. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. I just lost the visuals. That's why I don't know. Anyway, okay.
Okay. Mandy, thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about the various projects that have occurred in the downtown and the foot traffic. You know, we were seeing just lots of momentum, and then COVID happened. So I know that's putting a huge damper on a lot of our measures, right? But can you turn to, let's see, I made some notes, sorry. One of the things I think that would be really helpful is, I know that you sent a copy of did you send a copy of the PowerPoint that you're doing here currently?
Madam Chair, this is Griselda Martinez. We did not share a copy of the presentation. We can send it via email right now if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful, but you know what I'm thinking is I would love to, similar, Mandy, to the downtown parking committee. You did such an awesome job of putting a full.
I lost part of my screen. I need your help.
A handbook together that talks about sort of each agenda, the minutes, so then that we can use to include these PowerPoint presentations and any data. You went through a lot of data. So for example, I'd like to see the hard data when you made mention about communicating with businesses within the 60 days and saying, you know, maybe it's more like 90 days. That data to me is really important. And so my question around that is, you have every single business email, even the mom and pops, and that's how you're communicating with them?
Counselor Gandara, that is how through COVID we have been putting out multiple different discussions and information is through those emails, because yes, the Acela program requires that there be an email to sign up. There is an option through the constant contact for businesses to unsubscribe. We have had a few do that, not many. We've had a very low unsubscribe rate, so they won't continue to receive communications because they've chosen to opt out of those. But yes, we sent the original email we sent was to over, I think, 3,500 different email addresses.
Yeah. Wow. Good. That's impressive. And I think the more that we can communicate with them, especially during this time, right? Sending them information collectively, I think is really important. And so the other for the SUFA data, I know that you can't from year to year, 2018 to 2019, have established a baseline. Could we get a hold of that? I remember the presentations, just seeing an increase of foot traffic there. And so what is so could we have that data? A, B, now it's the information. Have you tried to look for another company that might be able to take on whatever the SUFA left off, with the exception of the Wi-Fi data, right? Just around the plaza.
Councilor Gondara, yes. So we've looked at several other types of ways of measuring foot traffic. What we have done is we're now able to measure the foot traffic in the plaza. So we can do that. What we had with SUFA is we were measuring it in several places along Main Street, so we could get an idea of the busier parts of Main Street. And that's what we're not able to do right now. We've done some extensive research on different ways to measure it. A lot of systems for foot traffic measurement are for inside spaces. Some of them are like I'm trying to think of the right word, but it's like heat tracking. And unfortunately, since ours is outdoors and we get so hot in the summer, we would not be able to track that data. So for now, we thought it was important. The plaza really has always been the hub of activity in downtown. And I think that following the trends of the plaza will show us will help us to get a list of trends for our downtown overall.
Yeah, I guess with the Wi-Fi in the downtown, I don't think we meant just downtown plaza. So what kinds of steps are being taken to provide downtown Wi-Fi from the beginning to the end, or whichever way you're looking at it, from north to south? I guess I should say that, north to south. What sort of plans do we have specifically to update that? Because I was wanting that to be used as an incentive to draw business right to the community. And I know that when I've asked, I was so asked folks in like at the farmers market and such, obviously before they went to COVID, that it doesn't operate really as well as I think our intention was. And so I want to see if there have been continued talks about how we're going to deploy that Wi-Fi from north to south.
Councilor Gondara, I think Griselda had her hand up. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Griselda Martinez for the record. Mayor Pro Tem, we have, because this is an item in which a big component of it's our IT department. We have been in communications with them, and from the research that has been completed and the evaluation of opportunity, there are some constraints in terms of bandwidth. Actually, some of the internet available at the plaza has to be toned down, if you would. And so I know that we're still exploring opportunities for the Mesquite area to do them at the park. But I think listening to your comments, it's a it's a good way of clarifying that your vision was to do it from south to north and for us to explore options for that complete area. I believe that there would be some technical issues, but we can further discuss that with our IT director and his team, and for us to have a better report finding to you all with information on that.
I think that would be really important. Again, I had envisioned it as being an incentive for businesses to come to the downtown and saying, you know, we have Wi-Fi downtown, not just the plaza. And I know that there is some broadband difficulties. It's just things that probably we should continue to connect the dots and have some really robust conversations with our legislators, right? Our lobbyists, because I do know that broadband as one of the bills that it was being presented by Michael Padilla, who has Senator Michael Padilla, excuse me, has a vested interest right in broadband statewide, hoping that it would get germane, you know, be germane at this special session to be able to come in the next session. And so I think, I don't know, Dr. Martinez, did we do an assessment of broadband capability, or is that IT's baby there?
Mayor Pro Tem, I think I'm now better understanding your question. So if the question is there broadband available for businesses to connect, they can connect through a private entity such as CenturyLink. If the question is on free available Wi-Fi, that's where the plaza is what we have done up to this point, in which if it's the second item, if you help me clarify that, we can further have conversations with IT. If it is potential tenants being able to connect to broadband as they move into buildings in downtown, that option is available.
So no, it was the latter, Dr. Martinez, about Wi-Fi available in the downtown and not just at the plaza. For me, I know there's the anti-donations and all that gets you know, factored in to this, but and not only an incentive for businesses, but for an incentive for people, I mean, to walk down, right? One of our measures is foot traffic. Well, wouldn't it be nice if people would come knowing that there's Wi-Fi there to be able to get from north to south using free Wi-Fi, right? And so, but the only reason I mentioned the broadband is because you mentioned it as a barrier, that there's access issues, broadband access issues, right? Is what I heard you say.
Yeah, not necessarily for users, Madam Pro Tem. I mean, if businesses, if they have the need to connect to internet as another utility, they have that option right now.
Yes, no, I know that. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so so thank you, Dr. Martinez. I think we've clarified, or at least I clarified about what my vision was about the Wi-Fi moving forward. And then my second question is around the TID revenue. Mandy, I think we were always aware that we would stop getting the state portion once we met a certain amount of money, I guess. And knowing that these bigger projects wouldn't generate knowing that the bigger projects are complete and moving into these smaller projects, I think the TID board, and correct me if I'm wrong, should have been aware of that as they were moving forward. I'm, I guess, wanting clarification. What was the TID board's thought about it as they're moving into doing parking lot 7, the church, the the renovation or the reconstruct of Campo and others, I mean, that will generate some GRT, but not to the extent that you thought it would? Or are you hoping that as businesses come, that they would generate the other portion of whatever your vision was of what that total might look like?
Councillor Gondota, I think when the measures were first set and that 10% increase, and those measures were set, I think, by staff, our thought, we had not considered the impact that the construction was having. Ideally, it's not, we don't want to do construction projects to generate the GRT. What we want is there to be more business generating GDP, and we want to see improvement in the property, and so we want those property values to go up. So that's really where we would like to see the increment. The projects that have been set by the TID board are still priorities and still ways that will increase or improve the area, which will continue to help us recruit businesses, recruit those residential mixed-use developments into downtown. So I think that those are crucial infrastructure projects, but long-term, the increment we want to see is not from construction, but rather from businesses, from commercial development.
So I guess then I'm going to push just a little bit. Then it feels like the measures are a little like the measures should be both, right? TID revenue, how much would that look like, knowing that with the analysis that you're doing with businesses coming in would be a portion of that, right? And then as you're beautifying the area and the rate, the property, now I'm learning more and more. This is because of Monday, right? Talking to TID, I'm getting it. Then why wouldn't we have a metric that says, you know, this is where we're looking at the rest of for the property values to go up? Couldn't we do a little of both? You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes, and Councillor Gonda, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things we learned in making this peak performance measurement. I think as Griselda mentioned, we were one of the first departments to go through it, and it has been a learning process. Some of the other things that we've done on that TID GRT is working with Francisco to break out what sectors or what industry had where the GRT loss was. That's how we know a lot of it was in construction. And so trying to like understand those numbers has been important to us.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad that, no, it's a learning for all of us. And I'm glad that Dr. Payares is on board to be able then to understand, and maybe the metrics need to be, you know, where you said those sectors, right? Where the funding is coming from. And we wanna increase this particular sector. How do we do it, right? Knowing that, you know, you're only going to get a portion of the as we move forward. Now, when we start doing big jobs like residential living, the living spaces, right? The however many 300 plus that we need to have, that's big GRT. Mm-hmm. So we gotta land that. So I'm on to my next question about realistically, how close are we to landing a project as it relates to these? I mean, I give it to me straight to all of us here. How close are we to landing that kind of project with the ones that you mentioned you've had developers show interest, but how close are we?
Councillor Gondara, we put together an RFP that will hopefully go out to SAC in, I would like to say in July, and that will be out probably for a few weeks to a month, and then we'll know what interest there is. Like you said, we've talked to several developers, but we have to see how many of them are willing to go through the process of actually responding to a request for proposal. And so that's when we'll know what the reality is of how likely those are to move forward.
Okay, and then the last thing you made mention, the owners of the parking lot that have the lease for like 20 some odd years, right? And you had said they have interest in building multifamily or housing in some form or fashion. But we've heard that for as long as I've been on council. So what is the reality of them presenting something to the city and moving forward?
Councilor Gondado, I've seen conceptual drawings for that, and I think I saw those last fall. I believe that they're working with some of the financing as well for their project to move forward. They do have a lease with that. So the city owns that land, but they lease that space. And I think they're 5 or 6 years into that lease.
5 of 20?
20, I'd prefer to double check the numbers, but I think it is.
Oh, sure. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I know that through conversations and meetings that we've had, Mandy, with our downtown parking committee and such, they have really pushed, I think, staff to look into what those timeframes are. Would there be a consideration of a break and lease, given that that there doesn't seem to be an interest and or the ability financially to move in that direction. And so what do you say now that I have everybody in the room to have this discussion? I feel it's only right to be completely transparent. Those questions have been posed to you about a break and lease and how do we have, and would the city consider doing that?
And Councilor Gondada, I've shared those questions as they came up from other committee. I don't know, Griselda, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that.
Yes, Griselda Martinez for the record. Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem, we have evaluated the terms of the lease. When it was first brought up, it was in the context of considering that as an option for the parking garage. So because the conversation on the parking garage had already, the feasibility study had already been started, and that was not one of the options. We did not further consider, but with the information that you're bringing on a broader context, we'll follow up on that and provide further information to city manager's office and for us to further evaluate.
Sounds good, Dr. Martinez. I appreciate that. I know that this has been that particular item near and dear and maybe a bone of contention sometimes for some of the local businesses there. It's one of those things that what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg? If we have this, we need that, right? We have these measures before we have, this and that. And I know that this agreement was made several managers before the ones that we have. And so I want that to be explored a little further, because that's prime real estate right there. I think if people are interested and so anyway, I know that I've been asked several times about that property. So, and I try to refer them on to you all. And that's all the questions I know. Dr. Payedes had his hand up several times. I don't know in some of the discussions that I've had with the metrics and questions I had, if he wanted to say anything more, Madam Chair. He's put his hand down probably 2 times, 3 times now.
Madam Chair, if I may, Francisco Payares for the record. The only thing that I wanted to mention is that when we're tracking some of those numbers on the TID, the amounts for construction tend to be heavy amounts. So those tend to be substantially weighing in Of course, construction lasts for only a period of time, and that's why it is important to keep in mind that whenever we have these construction projects, we can expect the TID numbers to go up. But just as we expect them to go up, we should also expect them that once these construction projects are over, we should expect these to go down. So it should not be a surprise to any of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Payares. Counselor Sorg, did you have your hand up?
I sure did. Thank you. Yeah, in this discussion about construction projects, I find it kind of interesting that gross receipts tax that are paid by construction, my colleagues might find interesting, actually goes back in the kitty and of the TID balance, the TID treasury, I guess you could call it. And so it's just recirculating the money back and forth. But I found the conversation about housing downtown to be very interesting. This goes way back, long before Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gondra was on the council too. We had my first year on the council, we had a company out of Albuquerque that wanted to build housing on that very property that we're talking about, a combination of first level retail and upper level apartments. And they just didn't carry through. I'm not sure exactly how it failed, but anyway, it did. But what caught my ear when we were in the discussion was this request for a proposal. I don't understand that, Ms. Gus. What is the request for proposal asking people to bid on? Just what is they're asking to bid on, and explain that. Just explain that.
Councilor Sorg, so the city owns most of the available land for redevelopment in downtown. So the request for proposal is looking for projects that we could partner with a private developer for them to build this land, and either we would contribute the land, sell it to them, lease it to them in a way to make this project happen. So our request for proposal is a project that could go on the land that we have available for development. And okay, it's the type of proposal that's you see very often. Our downtown is also a metropolitan redevelopment area. And so we're following sort of the template for how these proposals have been done with other MRAs throughout the state.
Okay, very good. So this is just for housing though, right?
We're looking for mixed use development. So it would be for mixed use, both residential and commercial. Okay,
okay. And it's new construction, not redoing buildings that are there already then, just that?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, that's understandable and very interesting. So that we should know something about it by whether it's going to be successful by the end of August, say?
We should know in the next few months. I don't know that I would say for sure by the end of August, but in the next few months, yes.
All right. And now the last bit, the parking lot that is leased out already, the person or business or company that is leasing that parking lot, are they not the same that is also part of the TID on the country club property?
Excuse me, Councilor Sorg, what parking lot are you referring to? Can you be more specific?
One next to, if I'm correct on this, one next to the electric company, El Paso Electric.
Thank you.
Councilor Sorg, they are not. So the developer that's next to the lease on the parking lot next to the El Paso Electric Park, it's the El Paso Electric building on Water Street. They were, I think, formerly involved with the country club property, but they are no longer.
Okay.
So it's a different developer related to that project.
Okay. We need to know a lot more about that country club. So when that comes up in the work session, be prepared to have information. Okay, that's just a side note. That's for now, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions, Councilor Sorg.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Martinez.
we have the presentations from land management, Visit Las Cruces, and sustainability before we finish with this topic. And then we have the second topic for discussion. So would you
should
be
move
okay
forward.
with us moving forward with the next presentation with Celicia Villegas?
Okay, so
Thank you.
and thank you, Dr. Martinez. So we'll move on to so how many more of these manager presentations do we have, Dr. Martinez?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Visit Las Cruces, we have land management, which is the next one. Visit Las Cruces, sustainability, Office of the Director. And then as we discussed before, airport and industrial park, we will discuss in our July meeting. And then after that, we have the discussion of the toolkit and how that connects to the economic gardening and business retention and expansion.
Yes, but for today?
Yes, ma'am. All of those topics are for today.
Yeah, well, future discussion is the airport and the industrial, but everything is for today. So it's 11 o'clock and I think our meeting was scheduled to end at 11:30.
Correct.
So I don't know how much time we're going to be able to allocate to each presentation. We may have to carry this over to our next agenda. I don't know.
Okay.
But we'll play it by ear.
Okay.
But we'll move along. Thank you, Dr. Martinez. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Celicia, Mandy, could you share your screen so Celicia can do her presentation?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me go to your spot, not to mine.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Celicia. I'm with the Land Management Department, Real Estate
Excuse me, would you please state, would you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, my name is Celicia Villegas. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, Celicia, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and the purpose statement for land management is to provide research, evaluations, acquisitions, disposals, and ongoing property management services to city departments, residents, and businesses so they can experience the best utilization of city-owned property. Next slide, please. Okay, a little bit more explanation of what our responsibilities are. We manage and monitor all city property records of right-of-way, easements, and city buildings. We do property acquisitions and disposals, leases, both the city as landlord and the city as a tenant. The West Mesa Industrial Park management records, land records, and lease compliance, property research, and city property records maintenance. And next slide, please. Okay, in summary of measures, our first one is to be at 95% land leases and contracts to be compliant. Expiration, renewals, escalators, all of those details. Our results for the third quarter overall was 90.5% compliant. The downturn of that is we did acquire some of the airport leases and we're currently working on those to bring them up to par. The total leases we manage are 272. Like I said, with the transition, we had 72 airport leases, and they are currently at 85% compliant. We are also in process of a new contract and record management, where we will be utilizing Laserfish and Munis contract module to streamline some of these processes. We are in training. By the end of this month, we will be in both Laserfish and Munis training for this process. Next slide, please. Next measurement, 95% projects to be completed on time and on budget. We have achieved that through third quarter. Some of the major projects we have worked on to complete this is the right-of-way acquisition for Toshiro Road, the acquisition of the Horse and Hound property at the Community of Hope campus, the property exchange between Eddie Benz and the city for Veterans Park expansion, and the sale of Old Moles Farm and Hatch to the private sector. Next slide. I don't know if we have any. And this is just a continuation, 95% projects completed. Subdivision plat reviews that we've conducted are 29. Property inspections, 13. And research conducted, 82. And community and interdepartment projects assisted, 86. And I believe that is all of our presentation.
Are there any questions?
None for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Gil, Councilor Sword, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, so I have a question. My question is, you have 95, or we, the city, has 95% of the projects completed on time, but is there any data on the land that is owned by the city that is not developed and doesn't have projects? Do you have any data in that regard?
We currently have an ongoing project with GIS that we can identify city property. Majority of that property is utilized by other departments such as Public Works, which is not available to be developed.
Oh.
So the majority of the available property we have is on the West Mesa. But yeah, we are definitely working on that to become more easily available to everyone. It's just being able to record all these right-of-way and excess right-of-way and excess. The parcels are easy. It's just the additional right-of-way that we might have that is an ongoing project.
Okay, so could we have a GIS on that? And because I'd really like to know how much of our land is sitting where we're the owners, and I think it would be, as Mandy and Dr. Martinez and Dr. Bayates have been following all this, or it seems like they're tracking, but it'd be good to know how much property we have, how much land we have, that to know how much of it can be developed, and to see how far we can take that. And I'd really like to see, the land in the perimeters of the city. And I'd like to know how the north part of the city, the east side of the city, how we're faring there, and so far as owning areas of land that are not developed. And also I'd like to know and I don't know if this is a function of your department, Dr. Martinez, but I'd really like to know whether there's any RFPs out in that area, because this whole thing about RFPs is interesting to me in this regard, to know whether anybody comes up to the city and says, I'd like to buy, say, someone who wants to develop a developer. So I'd like to know how that is going, if that's possible. Is it, Dr. Martinez, or is my question definitely nonsensical?
Madam Chair, thank you for those questions, Griselda Martinez, for the record. So as Celicia mentioned, from the land management and real estate services perspective, one of the efforts that we have prioritized during the last 6 to 9 months, we've been working on transitioning to digital records. And the next step after we transition to the record management tools, Laserfish and Tyler, we'll be able to then connect that to GIS. And so the overall goal would be for us to have a map available in which the city-owned properties are highlighted, and you click on that parcel and you get a summary of all the elements that pertain to that property. So that is something that we're working towards. With your question about properties and parcels that could be developed, as Celicia mentioned, majority of city-owned land is at the West Mesa Industrial Park, and actually we are in the contract review process for an update to the land development component to the West Mesa, and that's going to be part of the updates for whenever we have the opportunity to have that information brought to the policy review committee. But I do see that your point of having an inventory of city-owned land, with the request from City Council during the last 12 months to acquire properties through NAT or recommended by NAT. We have acquired a number of properties that then has been translated into opportunities for affordable housing. So we do the acquisition through land management, and then if it's for affordable housing, community development takes over for the rest of the process. So if we have had people, as Mandy mentioned in her presentation, people interested or inquiring about properties that we may own, and we have provided the information to them as needed. And so we just want to make sure that we make that information more easily available, and that we can just refer someone to a centralized location. So we're in the works of doing that.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Martinez, because in the picture of, just the bigger picture of our city and our people and housing issues and everything, everything that encompasses having a community. One thing I've thought about, and I don't know if this is appropriate or if this is the place to bring it up, but since we're on the record and we're talking about economic development, I think that we can, since we're talking about land management, and we're definitely here to discuss all aspects therein or thereof, because I would like to know, I know that the land commissioner would like to sell some of the land. And we, of course, have land in the East Mesa that is adjacent to or abuts the land trust there, the land there. And I would like to know if the city would be able to buy some of that land, and if we could then have that land available for affordable housing. I mean, it's all about using land to open up spaces for everyone. And so is that something just to throw out there at this point? And then maybe if this isn't the place to bring it up, would it be possible for just being on the record, whoever is listening to this, Dr. Maestas or Mr. Maestas is here, and I would just like to know if we can explore that insofar as developing, acquiring land, so that that land doesn't just go to, and with all due respect to our developers and gratitude that they do this work, but to make sure that the land isn't developed in a way that excludes everyone access to a nice part of, a nice, good housing, nice housing in a very beautiful part of the city, where they could have view of the mountains and not just leave it to people who, with all due respect, I'm one of them, retires and then has the benefit of living in a very nice part of the city. So if you can just, if you could just take these concepts, Dr. Martinez and everyone who's listening to this in the city, to kick that around, or see what that if there's any feasibility to that, I'd appreciate it. And
Noted, Madam Chair.
thank you. So can we go on to the next one now, Dr. Martinez?
Yes, ma'am. The next one we have
May I
is.
please have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My screen is, I can't see. So thank you. Speak up if you want to speak, because my screen.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
So yeah.
I just want to make a comment. The city properties, when Councilor Greg Smith was first elected, within a year or two, he made a comment, I guess, in a council meeting about city properties. And so he and I requested a list of those properties because we wanted to dispose of some of them. And
That too.
of course. And so we did get a list, and in that list was a lot of pieces of property that were just too small to develop. Just pieces of pie type properties, could be used for landscaping that would decorate the neighborhoods, for sure. A lot of them were along Missouri, I think, or was it Idaho? One of those two streets there. So anyway, this is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. So I'm glad, Councilor Forrest, you did bring this up. It's a good thing. The city does have a map that shows all the city properties on it. I've seen the map. I don't know where I can find it again, but it does have a map that does that. And anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you're talking about that. As far as affordable housing goes, we can require developers to add affordable housing to their developments. And that was done in Metro Verde. And I've been hearing rumors that the Metro Verde development was trying to get out of putting affordable housing in their development, but we'll hold their feet to the fire. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you very much, Councilor Sorga. That's very good information. So thank you. And so somehow my screen is screwed up here, for lack of a better word, and I can't see anything. Well, I'll call Annette, have her help me out. But can we move on then, move this agenda, Dr. Martinez?
Yes, Madam Chair, the next program is Visit Las Cruces, and we have Liz Vega as the presenter. Mandy, I'll ask you to continue to share the screen. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Liz Vega, the event manager with Visit Las Cruces, and I want to start with our purpose statement, which is to provide tourism development and destination marketing services to current and potential overnight travelers so they can come explore, experience, and discover what Las Cruces has to offer. And I think, did we lose the screen?
We lost the presentation. There we go.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. I'm trying again.
I have it. I can see it,
Okay.
but that's all I have on my screen, but it's okay.
Is it back up?
Go on to the next
Yeah.
slide.
It is for me. I don't know about the rest of you.
So the primary measure for Visit Las Cruces in the strategic plan is to increase estimated economic impact, which is EEI, to the city of Las Cruces through tourism and the hospitality industry. Currently, the measure is a 10% increase from the 2017 baseline EEI in the following areas: conventions, group tours, sporting events, and sporting events with an out-of-town team base. Those out-of-town teams are classified as being more than 50 miles away from Las Cruces. Another category of measure is events executed. So we have set measures in the following areas: the Rio Grande Theater events, supported events, like events on the plaza, and also tourism-driven events, convention-specific events, and then sport-related events. Next slide, please. So before the COVID-19 crisis hit, Visit Las Cruces was headed for a record high year. By FY20 Q3, we had surpassed most measures for increases in the EEI, and we're on track to meet or exceed all measures in the area of events and our other convention events. An example of this is by the end of March of this year, the convention market had already surpassed the measure baseline by 33%. And we were across the board with convention and sporting events up 13%. By FY20 Q3 for events, we had supported 10 events and our baseline is 12. Just a quick note on June of 2020, which we're currently in, we were set to break a lot of records with our numbers. We actually couldn't even hold any more events because we were going to be completely booked for the entire year. Some of those events were the Spaceport America Cup and the New Mexico Senior Olympics, which would have brought thousands of people into the city, but unfortunately they both had to be canceled. On a positive note, they are both annual events and we hope to see them back when it's safe next year. Going forward, some things to consider: the Visit Las Cruces budget is going to take a significant hit due to fourth quarter losses. We don't have the exact numbers at this time, but we should have the largest tax reports finalized in mid-July. And I think I have one more slide. Next slide. Yes. So based on the STR lodging report for the month of April, our occupancy was down 56%. The average daily rate was down $24.90. And the revenue per available room was down 67% compared to the same time last year. Historically, the fourth quarter is one of the strongest and brings in over a fourth of the total yearly budget. That won't be the case for 2020. And then going forward to next year, we will have significant impacts to our budget, unfortunately. That's all I have.
Thank you, Liz. Madam Chair, are there any questions for Visit Las Cruces?
Oh, so I guess I didn't hear her say that was it. Any questions?
Okay. Yeah, if I could, Madam Chair, just make a comment.
Yes, Councilor.
Yeah, to Liz and her team, I had this bright idea 10 years ago or so that there's these sporting events. When you mentioned sporting events, there's these sporting events that are big money makers. As you know, some of the ones we have already are doing pretty well. But even bigger than that are these college, university tournaments. Say the March Madness tournament, for example. Not that we'd get a Final Four, of course, but it's not out of the question we could get a lower level of the tournament. But more likely, but very difficult, would be one of these university level championship football games. That it's like a bowl game, only not in the FB, but at the FCS or below, and they bring in huge amounts of money. And so I've watched a few of these championship games in the past, and it's surprising where they're played. Played in places that are ice cold, rainy, just miserable kind of weather for both the players and the spectators for. And I keep looking at our weather here in December and January, and it's almost ideal for one of these bowl games. Well, we have the Sun Bowl right next door here too. So I asked the staff there if they could look into doing that. And they said, well, the university, of course, would have to submit to using the Memorial Stadium for the game, of course. And that would be something they'd have to agree. So I contacted the former Mr. Boston athletic director about that. And he said, no, it's kind of out of the question. They had natural grass because the use of it already, especially considering the high school game that's played there too, gives the grass a pretty rough time. And so he said we'd have to have artificial turf then for that. Well, it's a little while ago, but we did get artificial turf on our Memorial Stadium. So it's possible. I'd like to keep that little seed of information in your mind. You have to bid. We have to bid on it on these games, but I think they would do well here. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done.
And thank you, Councillor Sorg. Any other questions? Then we'll move on to the next item, which is Dr. Martinez.
Madam Chair, Griselda
Yes.
Martinez, the next program is sustainability, and Lisa LaRocque is going to be presenting.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Yes, Ms. LaRocque, hello.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair and councilors. Sustainability's program is described as having the goal to provide collaboration, planning, implementation, and ongoing assessment services to city departments, businesses, and residents of Las Cruces so that they can integrate sustainable practice into decision-making for equitable, economic, and environmental health for all. That's a long sentence. Could I have the next slide, please? There are 4 areas that I have focused on this year: renewable energy, climate change, resiliency, and overall sustainability. Much of my time has been working on in the energy area. I have an overall goal of reaching renewable energy adoption by 3% by 2022. The goals of sustainability by their very nature are long-term and can be really challenging, so I have a different way of reporting on this. I have been actively involved in promoting new legislation like community solar and testifying at the New Mexico Public Regulation Commissions to help reduce energy rates for ratepayers and planning an energy transition roadmap. Although I have no tangible success to prove to it, we hope we're biting away at this systemic problem. And as you know, I've been working for several years to launch a purchase power agreement. A PPA is another way of describing it, is where a third party builds and operates and sells the renewable energy for use by two city facilities. In our case, Amoresco will be supplying 3 megawatts of renewable energy. That's like 30 of the carports you see out in City Hall at 12 sites serving Wells and the airport. And with the PPA, there's no investment cost. The renewable energy is less expensive than El Paso Electric's fossil fuels. And the city has the option to purchase the depreciated system anytime after 10 years, if it chooses. So for example, if the city purchased these systems at year 15 using the accumulated savings from the lowered price renewable energy, at the end of 25 years, the city would realize a $16 million energy savings. And I do want to highlight that between all of the new solar systems being installed with direct purchase at the police department, Animal Service Center, and Fire Station 3, and the power purchase agreements, which that will also include the convention center. The city will have reached its commitment to supply 25% of its electricity through renewable energy by 2021. The goal is 2022, so I'm happy to report that we'll have accomplished that a year earlier than planned. My work in climate change has the goal of reducing emissions by 6% by 2022. That, in hindsight, was very ambitious. What we've done to date is we've focused on understanding what the different sectors, building, transportation, and waste are contributing in emissions at the municipal and the citywide level, and setting targets, much like we did with the renewable energy target, to help drive change in reducing our carbon footprint. This work extends beyond the municipality, where I'm trying to market the adoption of new energy conservation codes. This is a new project that I will be working on to save residents and businesses energy and provide new jobs in the energy sector. Next slide, please. While climate change work tries to lessen our carbon footprint, resiliency work helps us to prepare for the stressors and shocks in our lives, like extreme heat, drought, winds, and even floods, which can all be exacerbated by pandemics, economic downturns, and other unfortunate events in our lives. So resiliency can be many different things. For example, what we're doing right now is we're mapping urban heat with NASA data and NOAA data, and partnering with the Green Chamber of Commerce and the NMSU climatologists to map the summer air temperatures. And this will give us an indication of how asphalt, concrete, and a lack of vegetation have created a heat sink, also known as urban heat or the urban heat island effect. And we are also conducting a survey with residents to learn more about how heat impacts them in their homes, or while riding or while walking and bicycling. This data will help identify what communities are most impacted and how to address it. And some of the strategies that we're using include cool corridors, increasing the tree canopy, and decreasing energy cost burdens. And having these successes will translate into a healthier workforce and lower insurance liabilities. My last category, overall sustainability, is a catch-all for all the projects thrown my way, such as EV chargers and EV adoption, plastic bag bans, bike share programs, green infrastructure, and arroyo protection, just to name a few. And these projects ebb and flow. There are many factors influencing their movement and their success. But in all cases, I try to reframe the way we look at them by framing issues as ecological services and disaggregating data and capturing narratives to show inequities, and to look at the life cycle costs of materials and actions to understand the true value of sustainable practices. And in that way, I hope I'm changing the narrative for the city. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. LaRock. Thank you so much. And yes, I think you are changing the narrative for the city, and thank you so much for your work. Yes, Councilor Sword.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we learned just recently from the this Coalition for Sustainability in New Mexico that the state of New Mexico has adopted some green building codes that the city hasn't done that. And so I would like to see this committee, our committee, to have a presentation by the state that shows what those green building codes are. And I think we will get a person from the state that will do that. So in the next meeting or two, one of the next two meetings, if we could possibly do that, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Sword.
Oh, by the way, to finish it, actually to the end, there we would ultimately, if we want to, have a resolution to adopt those codes for Las Cruces.
Mr. Sorg, Councilor Sorg, I think that's an excellent idea. I think it would probably be a good idea to have a work session for the entire city council on that. But
Oh, that's fine. Let's start here though.
okay.
Madam
Let's hear
Chair?
it. Yes, ma'am.
Griselda Martinez for the record.
Yes,
That's
Dr.
an
Martinez.
excellent recommendation. My proposal would be for this topic to be brought to the, let me see if I get it right, Transportation, Sustainability and Infrastructure PRC. And
right.
just.
Either
Okay.
one, it doesn't matter. Either committee is fine.
Okay, and Andy Hume is our staff liaison and he's online. So for him to note that this has been a request for the other PRC.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Martinez. So your request, Councilor Sorg, is actually more appropriate in another committee, and but let's make sure it comes to City Council as a work session. I think this is of utmost importance. Thank you. Dr. Martinez?
Madam Chair, if there are no other questions for sustainability, I will move to the Office of the Director. But before I do that, I want to thank Lisa for the work that she has been doing in the field of sustainability. And as of beginning of July, she'll be moving to the city manager's office. So this would be a good farewell with the summary of the work that she has done within the Economic Development Department. So I wanted to take an opportunity to thank her for that. And we look forward to many more accomplishments in the sustainability realm. All right, so Office of the Director, we have the goal to set the vision of the department. Yes, Councilor Sir, I believe Councilor Sir has his hand up.
Oh, I don't see his hand, but yes, Councilor.
I'm applauding LaRock.
Oh, is that what okay, because
that's an applause.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question of Lisa? Sorry, I had my hand up, but of Lisa, Ms. LaRock.
Yeah. Yes, I see your hand. Can you take down the what do you call it? The presentation, the PowerPoint. Can somebody remove that? Perfect. Okay. All right. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. LaRock, in terms of the heating corridor, heating cooling corridor, I think you call it, and the work that you've done in Councilor Vasquez's district, specifically because data was supporting, right? The data supported that. Can you tell me what, and you may have shared this with us in the past, because I remember seeing it, sort of the colors with the different, where the heat was, right? What would you say is the second largest area that has a problem with that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Gandra, the data that we had before that you did see was surface temperatures. Yes. And which is one way of measuring it. A second way of measuring it is air temperatures. That's more indicative of what we experience when we're walking or biking or inside of our house. And so we're about to collect that data as a partnership with NMSU either at the end of this month or the beginning of the next month. And that will give you a really good sense of where the areas are most impacted. But I would say with confidence that those areas are in the infill district already.
Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this, or maybe not. Are you a moderator, Lisa? Maybe, no. So I agree. I think the infill is where there is a lot of particularly concerned about the infill around the country club area. I know as we have been moving along in terms of, you know, all that got stuck in court and sort of that area, to include Apodaca Park, it rubs up against Councilor Bencomo and Councilor Vasquez's there, and the concerns that people had with, you know, air quality, and it's continuing to be an eyesore, letting the vegetation go dry, all those trees. It's so disappointing and actually it disgusted me that we couldn't save, you know, that green space, and, you know, just the debate about what to do with it currently. I'd really love to see some data to support that, because we have a lot of older folks in that area, 70 to 85, 90 years old. It's an interesting area, very unique, right? Because there's, you know, a trailer park on one side. There's, you know, it used to be the country club area. When you go walk in that area, there is so much that needs to be done, updates in the streets and the homes, and it just isn't going to match up to what the development that wants to be proposed. But if we can get some factual data that would be presented to us as a way to enhance and entice, you know, a larger, the widening of the boundaries and including some of those areas to have community green space, but walking, but also affordable housing, mixed use. I think in my mind, people would benefit greatly, not only the ones that are coming into that area if mixed housing is being established there, but in the right. So clearly people feel that there's going to be a benefit. So I continue to be concerned about that area in more ways than one. And I'd hope that in presenting this, or at least asking the question, that we might have some data that would support that moving forward.
Madam Chair, Councilor Gandara, the routes that we were taking are in 7 different polygons around the city, and they're very circuitous routes. I mean, they wiggle all around each of the different neighborhoods. And we have intentionally put the identified active transportation routes that were passed, both the bicycle routes and the walking routes, and made sure that we covered all of the different council districts with special intention in the areas that we were most concerned about. So I hope that will inform the public works and other investors, that as we develop out the bike trails or the walking trails, that there's special attention to address the urban heat issues in those areas in particular. So I'm right with you on trying to make sure that we do it right the first time.
Thank you, Ms. LaRock. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you again, Ms. LaRock, for everything you do. Love you. And so Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
are we ready for
Yes.
your?
Mandy, one more time, please. And I was made aware that there is another public meeting that would need to be streamed. So I'll keep it short so we can finish this meeting and give the opportunity for the next meeting to be streamed. So Office of the Director, we have 4 major items that we are tracking. And this is to make sure that that we follow the overall vision of the department. So the first one is 80% of the departmental strategic resources are achieved. That 95% of survey respondents who say that they have a positive customer experience working with the department. 90% of staff who have documented professional development plans. And then also that we continue the evaluation on the different programs as we implement strategies. And so next slide, please. So from the goals, we have mixed results here. For the 80% that we have as a goal, we have 68% up to the third quarter. And this was an improvement from last year, but we still need to continue to set methods for us to track the metrics, and then also gather and report and analyze for decision making. And then for the response on customer experience, we have been held constant in the around the 49.7%. And that is something that we'll be looking for further into. This is something very important to me and to our team, to make sure that we are strong partners, to make sure that we are collaborating and providing a good customer service. And so this is a metric that we'll follow closely to make sure that we are improving this number. For professional development for our team, this is a number that I'm very proud of for all the effort put from each individual team member. All of our staff members have a professional development plan, and something that we implemented this year, beginning of this calendar year, is that for travel, for instance, we tie it back to either professional development or a goal in the strategic plan. And we hope that that continues to align our goals with the efforts put behind. And lastly, the section program evaluations, we have conducted 21 up to third quarter. So at the end of this fiscal year, we should be able to complete the 28 as the goal. One more item is that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have worked on updates to the strategic plan for the department. And one of the big changes to the plan is our effort to align the strategic plan to the goals for economic development in Elevate Las Cruces as our comprehensive plan. So we have included in every section, every program, how that aligns to the comprehensive plan. And we have incorporated new areas that weren't there, that were defined in the strategic and the comprehensive plan, to make sure that we are doing the will of City Council as adopted in the comprehensive plan. With that, Madam Chair, that's the end of my presentation and the rest of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez, and thank you everyone who presented today. And we'll move on to our, we had our local leaders toolkit.
Yes, ma'am. In the interest of time, would it be possible for us to table that item and discuss it in the next meeting?
I think so, because it's already 11:45. So why don't we do that? For purposes of tabling it, we'll do it to a date certain, which will be our next meeting. And our next meeting is
July
20? No, July.
Madam Chair, I think it's July 22nd.
July 22nd.
22nd, correct.
I'll make that motion to table this to July 22nd meeting.
Okay, that's my birthday.
Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. I'll be 49. I know I look like I'm 39, but I'll be 49.
We'll celebrate your 49th birthday.
Thank you. So thank you for your motion. Do I have a second? Do you have a motion or should we don't need a motion? Or do we need a motion? I need some,
I motion to,
so moved to table to a date certain?
Need a second. I made the motion.
Okay, perdón, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Emeritus Sorg, and we have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara to table the two local leaders toolkit item to our next meeting to a date certain on July 22nd. And our future discussion, so let's move on. Let me just read this for the record. So our future discussion task listing is A, Las Cruces International Airport updates, and B, West Mesa Industrial Park updates. And those will be on our agenda for the next meeting. Am I correct, Dr. Martinez?
Madam Chair, Gisela Martinez for the record. Yes, and also we had discussed the evaluation of COVID in the local economy based on business analysis. So that was another proposed item because of the length of the discussions of the future discussion items. I would propose to keep the agenda for 2 items.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
can I say something?
Yeah,
Madam Chair?
of course.
In that latter agenda item, Dr. Martinez, is that where we could consider the possibility of contracting with the outfit that did the surveying, the study, right? The group that convened the 15 people. I don't know what you're calling it, but
The flash assessment.
thank you. The flash assessment. They made some recommendations, and I think that via those recommendations is something we should be talking about and considering hiring them for the next phase of the next phase. And so could we consider that here to bring to council?
Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem, we are working on those items internally. And my recommendation would be for us to do that initial evaluation with Dr. Payares transitioning to Deputy Director. We've had a period without analysis, but I believe that we have a lot of the information that we can start the evaluation. And if we see the need at that point to look into outside resources, but our plan is to evaluate the impact based on business registration data from workforce connections on unemployment claims and other elements and data available.
Madam Chair, very quickly, we just got reminded that the meeting for July is actually July 15th. That's the 3rd Wednesday in July.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Baez. It's July 15. Okay, so it means I don't have a birthday this year. Yay. Okay. So thank you all. I think, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. So moved by Councilor Sorg and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara to adjourn. And we are now adjourned. And see you all again, hopefully sooner, but definitely on July 15th. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.